Media
The
station.
following program is paid for by the Charlie Butler team. Looking for tips on selling your home? Tune into the Charlie Butler Show right here on WGBF AM every Sunday at 9 a.m. The Charlie Butler Show, where your questions get answers. Charlie guarantees it.
Good Sunday morning, Tri-State. This is the Charlie Butler Show, and I would say the Charlie Butler Real Estate Show. Real estate, of course, is our focus here. We get off into other nonsense, but besides that, we get off into Jordan's love life, of course. How's that? And Jordan, speaking of your love life, I know you always like to talk about that on the radio.
Oh, I love it. My love life is fantastic. We went and did a huge music festival this past weekend in Cincinnati. Had an incredible time. Absolutely incredible time.
Okay, you asked me the other day, so did you get in the mosh pit?
I did. I did get in the mosh pit. I kicked a few people, hit a few people, and it was an all-around good time. Got some drumsticks, guitar picks, set lists from bands. Great weekend.
Yeah, for those of you that can't see him on the radio, and I don't guess any of you can see him on the radio, is that George's a big guy, so he's kicking people. He's going to hurt you.
I am a big man. I've been big since I was little, is what they say. Refrigerator Perry quote right there. Yeah. But yeah, no, I am the big dude in the mosh pit that will mess your life up if you get too close.
Although you haven't called me, you know I've got a background in diamonds, and I was going to help you pick one out, and you have not called me.
Well, you haven't told me when. Let's link up.
Okay. Now we're a little farther, David.
Yes, I'm
Jordan saying let's link up. Okay. And of course, beside me here, my as I said, I got in the nonsense here, is my co-host David Crow with Churchill Mortgage, who you just heard about Churchill Mortgage from Dave Ramsey right before us.
Right before us, folks. Dave Ramsey telling you all the time, call my good friends at Churchill Mortgage. And here locally, that's David Crow. So good Sunday morning to everyone. And like Charlie said, sometimes we kind of go off on tangents away from real estate. And Jordan, I don't know, kind of the whipping pole or whatever here. So we love segueing over to him.
You know what, Jordan? That. We're going to have to start, whenever we segue over to you, we're going to have to start playing the Allman Brothers whipping post.
Whipping post.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Greg, I'm tied to the whipping post.
But it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun.
Absolutely.
So, David, how's the I know now I can speak from the real estate side. And you and David and I was running late today, so we really haven't talked much. But
nope.
Real estate's still good.
Yes.
I mean, it's are we getting 3-4 offers the first day like we were? No, we're not. That's not happening.
No.
But we're still selling homes in 3-4 weeks.
You know, Charlie, most realtors I'm working with now, sales are still multiple offers. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it maybe they're showing through the weekend and they're still holding to say submit all offers through the weekend. On Monday, the listing agent's going to sit down with the seller and review all offers and decide on that day which one they're going to go with. And so that's occurring. So we're still in a lot of multiple offer situations. Charlie, like you said, real estate is where things need to be, and I'm talking about investment long term. The stat that came out this past week, because they just looked at all brand new numbers. We're sitting here in September, and they looked at August, and in August they said appreciation as a nation, home values as a nation, hit an all-time high in appreciation. Yeah. Well, guess what? This past week, when we pulled in August numbers into September, we're at a brand new all-time high on real estate values as a nation. Appreciation is absolutely up. So we're dealing with higher interest rates in the summer and early fall of 2023 than where we were 1 year ago, which is disappointing for every mortgage lender out there. We wish that we could just smile and tell people, great news, but the reality is, as a nation, rates have been up. And most people are looking for a home. They know it. It is what it is. And we're going to have a lady on here in a moment named Kelly, but she and I spoke earlier, and I love what she said to me. People conform. They just simply conform.
Kelly lies a lot, though. I mean,
man, I didn't know that. So
no, Kelly's great.
But no, folks, if you're listening, Charlie and I say it each week. If you're thinking about selling, contact them. Get your home on the market. You're going to get top dollar for the home. Buyers, if you're out there, you got to get pre-approved up front before you go home and house shopping and looking.
And David, we want to sell the house, but so many people, they're afraid They're saying they see all these interest rates are so high, and they've went up. Okay, we're not hiding.
Yeah, I'll Google it. It's national data.
So I mean, nobody's trying to hide the fact that they went up. But when you look at it, they haven't went up that much. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but when we talk about dollars and cents.
No, it really hasn't. And the fact of the matter is, which now we're in 2023. Mm-hmm. We are further away from 2020 and 2021, where people saw rates in the 2s and low 3s and thought that, quote unquote, was normal. That was never normal. As we spoke off air, we held those rates as a nation too low, too long. We're dealing with a boomerang effect here in the last year or year and a half. But the reality is, on a national level, historical level, being in the 6s and 7s is not out of bounds for a 30-year mortgage for anyone.
No.
And what's going to happen is...
There were times, David, as you know, people could and Kelly, she's sitting here too, Kelly Norton from Bosse Title. Kelly knows also, people getting 6 and 7s, they'd do anything for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, but here's what we are, and I share this with all my borrowers. You know, the slogan for the past year and a half has been, marry the home, date the rate, and find the home you like, if it fits your needs, get into it, because as a nation, it's probably going to push that and kick that can to the first 6 months of 2024 now, we're going to push into a recession. We're going to push in, and there's mixed data on that right now as well. But we will, and interest rates are going to go down. And so when I'm working with a borrower, hypothetically, if I'm showing them 6.75 as a mortgage payment, this is what it's going to be. But somewhere in the next 24 months, you're going to see that probably drop into the low 6s, into the 5s, and potentially in a 24-month period, we could be back in the high 4s. So I'm telling them this is a temporary payment, and I go ahead and share with them what a refinance is going to look like in less than 24 months of them owning the current home at the current monthly payment. And everyone I do this with, they're like, cool, let's do it. I want to buy the home. I want to make the offer, because I can't change the data which is coming in.
Right.
And it is going to hit a point at either the end of this year or first part of next year where we're going to see negative inflation. We're not going to hit the 2%. We're coming at it too hard. We're going to blow right through that as the way they measured, and we'll be in negative inflation. We'll be in a form of recession, and interest rates at that point will definitely go down from where we are.
Yeah, you even hear people talking about they'll go into the 4s, but you said something I wanted to follow up on. Everybody's right now, and I just read on Housing Wire, I guess it was, rates were getting close to 7. But at Churchill, you've got under 7%.
Oh, absolutely, under 7%. And actually, as a nation right now, the average is, I think, this morning was 7.2.
Yeah, it's a little over 7.
So, as a nation.
It's down, and 7.2 is down.
Yes, down from where we were over a week ago. So, and Charlie and I are talking about national averages. Yes, at Churchill, with my borrowers, I have had rates in the 6s, and I have been blessed in certain circumstances as rates pushed in the 7, and the headline news is over 7. I'm closing loans in the high 5s. And so each borrower, each loan program, and so forth. And I have some of my local lending competitors that I'm friends with. I've been in the industry over 20 years.
Right.
And I've got people at title companies that'll look at my closing disclosures as they're looking at other lenders' closing disclosures. And after the closing, they're looking at me going, how did you get that rate? That's not what we're seeing in here. And so I've been blessed. Churchill Mortgage is a 100% debt-free mortgage company, just like Dave Ramsey tries to help educate the national population on becoming debt-free. So in this crazy market we're all operating in, when you're a debt-free organization and you're not pressed to be paying massive interest payments and so forth from a commercial standpoint, you can pass these savings along to, quote-unquote, the people on the front line, which helps me as a loan originator, but it really helps the borrowers.
Right.
So, but I appreciate you bringing that up, but that's the reality I'm working in right now is, yes, when given the opportunity, my rates are lower than what I'm seeing in the open market here in southern Indiana and western Kentucky.
I'm going to ask you a question I shouldn't ask you because I don't know the answer.
Oh,
so
Jordan, get ready to edit this.
I don't know what you really. Yeah. everybody thinks about, when Churchill Mortgage is so closely associated with Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
And when they think about Dave Ramsey, they think about, of course, no debt, little debt. So what about the people who have had some challenges on their credit?
So great question, because I get some of these people in with leads because they specifically call me from all over the state of Kentucky or all over the state of Indiana. And they're like, I'm listening to Dave, and I went on the website and I saw you're based right here. And so with us, what we do is I do an application analysis, take a look at everything, and I give them steps to be able to improve. We do credit repair.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And many times people simply don't know how to, quote unquote, make their score go up without a mortgage payment in the mix. And so I counsel them on things they can do, and we lay out a plan. Sometimes it can be as little as 30 days on a small thing. It may be a 3 months, 6 months, depending on where, maybe it's a year from now. But for the first time in their lives, they've had somebody actually show them things they need to do, and some foolish things along the way, and getting set up. And sometimes people make really good money, but they don't pay their bills on time. So sometimes it's just restructuring from a budget standpoint. And this little 30-day late that keeps appearing on these 4, 5, 6 different accounts, we have to get past those. And you've got to start making your payments on time or early. It sounds so simple, but unfortunately, and folks listening, Charlie and I are looking at each other. I can tell you, and I'll just name 2 categories: lawyers and doctors. Mm-hmm. They make really good money, but sometimes their credit reports are not the really good credit reports out there because they simply don't put an emphasis on, quote unquote, paying their bills on time. And they have bills, and their credit scores deeply reflect that.
You know, the third one I was thinking of?
What's that?
The construction guys that travel.
Oh, yes, because they're making great money.
Yeah.
But staying on top of when that bill is due. And so sometimes it's just setting up on auto pay. It's doing some things to take it off their plate, and they don't understand that this lack of discipline of just paying your bills on time has this enormous weight on a negative credit score, which impacts A, whether you qualify for a loan, or B, getting the best rate available to them. So, I mean, I appreciate you asking the question, but the answer is credit repair. Right. I give them, and we have the tools to be able to forecast where you're going to be in 3 months, 6 months, or whenever that time frame is, and get them on the pathway. The other thing I'll say, honestly, and I didn't know where you were going, Charlie, everyone who closes with Churchill Mortgage, the Matt Clark, our chief operating officer, they get a video from him and basically welcome them to Churchill family. This is how you're going to make your mortgage payment. It's an intro there. But along the way, he sets the pathway that as a mortgage company, we want you to be debt-free. And these are some additional steps you can take to either pay off your mortgage early, or, in building that equity faster and getting on that pathway of actually being debt-free, which people chuckle and say, well, don't mortgage payment companies want people to have mortgages? We know what's going to happen, but along the way, we right out of the gate set them on a pathway of potentially just paying their mortgage off faster than 30 years, and 30 is the most common mortgage term out there at this point. And so David, how can they get a hold of you? Oh, easiest way, and Charlie and I talk about this each week. In our industry, cell phones are king, real estate lending.
Absolutely.
And so the easiest way to get a hold of me is my cell phone, and that's 270-222-0676. Or you can go to churchillmortgage.com, and you'll see my branch currently in Owensboro, Kentucky, but servicing this whole area at the moment. And just give me a call. Call my cell phone. Sometimes people go, oh, I hate to bother you on your cell. And I've heard even realtors, no, call our cell phone. It's the fastest way. Email, text, calls.
Chris Combs, who's been on the show before, the builder, that's the only number out there for him.
Yes.
On his signs.
We want immediate connection with you, and that's the fastest way for response. So cell phone. So
we haven't talked about our sponsor, Bosse Title. We actually have a live model from Bosse Title to come on. What would we call you, Kelly? A spokesperson.
There you go, representative.
But Kelly Norton, who I've known for many years, closes loans at Bosse Title. Give them your duties. What do you do, Kelly, besides close? That's mainly what you do.
There's, we always want to make sure everything's clear.
Well, yeah.
Just kind of an overview of everything that's been done on it. Make sure it's all been done.
Well, and
close it. We fund it. Send out payoffs. Make sure everybody. Well, and also too, people always freak out when they come to a closing. They're really nervous, and I always tell them the hard part's over with.
I'm glad you said that because it's you're showing up to this law firm.
We're just signing some papers,
and so I do a great job of letting them know ahead of time. Not everyone does. But it's almost like showing up to a doctor's office or something like that. It seems very formal, and again, most people have never done this, so they're like, "Oh, what's going to happen?"
Freaking out.
You do a great job at making them feel very comfortable and let them know we're just signing some paperwork. The hard part's over with. You're correct.
You guys had the hard part.
Of course, Kelly's was such a good company now, and I'm not saying her previous company. I'm not going to mention them, but there were so many times that there would be things might go sideways, and everybody in the real estate industry that happen to have title work they'd come to me or in my office. They'd say, "Well, what do we do?" I said, "Call Kelly." "Well, no, this and this going on." I said, "Call Kelly." I said, because and 99% of the time, if it could be fixed, she'd get it fixed, and she is.
I would try.
She truly is very, very good at that. But Kelly, you started on something that we probably ought to go over that we assume people know, but they don't. You started talking about, everything you did, go back with the searches. Okay, I sell a home. David pre-approves it. It's all pending. It comes to you. What happens next?
It comes to us. So once we get everything set up, we'll send our searchers, and thank God for online now because most of that can be done right in our office. Sometimes we do have to go to the courthouse to find certain things. They just want to make sure that there's no liens or any type of encumbrances on that property. Meaning if you buy a piece of property from me and let's say I had a judgment lien or a tax IRS lien, you want to make sure that that's paid for because once you purchase that property, if it's not only does it attach to me, but it attaches to any property that I may own, as well. So basically we search that property, all the county records on it, making sure that it's all free and clear, issuing title insurance policies. And I say this, state of Kentucky, they're getting there as far as like county records are concerned. However, sometimes things get misindexed.
What does that mean?
Well, they weren't filed underneath that property description like they should have been.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So in that instance, that's where title insurance would come into play. And it does happen.
Okay, this is how we explain title insurance. And we may be told, because people always ask, I know we talked off air, you said you don't hear that much. But when we go over the settlement statement with people, they ask, well, what does title insurance do? And I tell that one of the things I've always said is that, it will pay for anything that could have been reasonably discovered.
Great way of explaining it, yes. Because even though it might have been misindexed, we are humans that are searching that too. An individual could have missed something.
Yeah.
So that's just ensuring your property that if that happens, it's taken care of.
It's reasonable that could have been discovered.
Absolutely.
So,
And human error does,
Right.
Human error does sometimes come into play on something coming up that didn't get caught, So that
with
that
the title
ensures
insurance being issued, if, like you said, a lien was missed, some kind of encumbrance was missed, having that title insurance in place, the quote-unquote insurance company behind it, because that's the way people think about it.
Yeah.
The average person.
Yeah.
Because I get these questions as well.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
And they're like, is that my homeowner's insurance? And I'm like, no. And then you kind of walk through, especially your first-time home buyers that have no clue.
Absolutely.
So you walk through and the way you explain and what Charlie said is some of what I've shared with them, and just making sure that when that title being ownership is passed from the previous owner to you, if they miss something that somebody had put a lien or said, if this property ever sells, they have to pay me $1,000 or $2,000, whatever that number is, your title insurance will kick in. And Charlie, I liked how you said reasonably discovered.
Yeah.
And that protects you as the new homeowner, that you didn't just buy a property and then you get a knock 3 months later and said, well, now that you're the owner of this, you owe me $20,000 for this mechanic's lien or the roof and all of them. And so that protects you, peace of mind. It's your home and you're walking.
And it's a one-time premium.
It's one time. It's not. That's a great because that gets into the homeowners.
Absolutely, and trust me when we say that too. It's a one-time premium.
And here's the other thing: when you're, and I've noticed this, and I've tried to convince them otherwise, but when you're dealing with investors, especially new investors, and they're paying cash, they say, "Well, we'll save that money." Yeah, and as Kelly knows, you will never see a veteran investor save that money. He'll pay never.
Always pay title.
He always pays title. Yeah.
Because there's that little window there of when we've searched the property and when we've gone to the table with that property.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I like how you said that, Charlie. I think we're going to save that money, especially if you're dealing with the investment and sometimes you're, quote unquote, getting that steal or deal and you don't know what's laying out there. So, no. I'm with you, Charlie. I've never known an investor, Dave.
Not a
seasoned veteran, no.
Kelly, we were talking off air, and I was surprised at the question that you got the most about escrow.
Yes.
And which we don't think that much about escrow in Indiana because, people buy a house, they give earnest money usually to the listing company, and, that's, you guys wind up with it one way or another, or subtract from the commission. But it's more complicated than that at times, isn't it?
Well, and I think the whole perception of it is because, they see it on TV, HGTV. We got to,
right.
Maybe explain it that way because Indiana and Kentucky, you're funding at the table.
Yeah,
so maybe go back like you did, Charlie and I, and kind of explain the difference, maybe the West Coast and here in the Midwest and how people buy homes and, quote, unquote, close on a home here locally.
Right. Well, locally here, we're called a table-funded state, meaning when we go to the table and we exchange documents, we exchange funds, at that time you own the property. We don't necessarily exchange keys just because we have, possession.
Yeah. But sometimes it is.
Absolutely.
Like
sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It just depends. Now,
but Kelly, something else, but just since you brought possession up, I've had this happen many times from somebody moving here from the West Coast, East Coast. They said, now, let me get our 30-day possession thing, which is kind of a local custom. Mm-hmm. They'll say, let me get this straight. I own the house. I'm paying the mortgage. But yet they get to live there another 30 days while I pay the mortgage. Yeah, you pretty well got it down.
That's pretty much. It doesn't happen out west like that.
So explain what happens out west.
So essentially when they go into escrow, they've signed documentation. Documentation then has to be sent to the courthouse. Once recorded, then funds are distributed and keys are distributed. That is considered, I own the home now. It's of public record. Here are my keys, and the homeowner has to be out and handed over to the new buyer.
Mm-hmm. So the thing that comes to mind with me, again, all the over 20 years in the industry, Charlie's got over 20 years in the industry. You've got over 20 years in the industry total with all of it. So I've seen times where life was so good and so easy for mortgages that people gave possession day up because if they were told a week ago you're good, closing knew was going to happen, people went ahead and moved out, keys were exchanged. Then we've seen people come into the market from the lending world that said you're approved, and then a day before closing, they've called the buyer and said, oh, I'm so sorry, your loan got denied. And the sellers have vacated the property and thought, what do you mean you're not closing tomorrow? So we've seen this growing possession time to basically say, no, we're going to buy my home. We're going to go to the closing table here, we'll say Indiana and Kentucky. Once we do all that, I have 7 days, 14 days. Charlie said 30 days. That now that I know that you're actually closing and buying my house, now I'm going to pack up all my goods and all my belongings and I'm going to start moving out or wherever. But essentially on the West Coast, when you use that term escrow, everyone is signed. The lender has basically set aside the money. So the buyer and the seller know this is a done deal, but it still has to go to the courthouse and the property has to exchange ownership. And at that point, once that happens, I guess comes back to quote unquote the title company or the escrow company.
There you have it, escrow
company.
It's
an escrow company. And that's when the keys are, everyone now knows they're moving forward. So
times are changed too. Online. We can record documents online now.
True.
So much faster.
Yes.
A handful of years ago, it would take weeks sometimes, just depending on how far that courthouse was. Yeah. So, it could be the same day. Not necessarily saying that it'll be another day. It could be the same day, just because that.
And realtors that are out there, I'm going to tell you, I've had many realtors that are working with a client that have sold a home in the West Coast, and they're not quite sure what's going on. Okay, when I thought they closed, but they're saying it's an escrow, and I've had realtors go, "Isn't escrow like the property taxes and homeowners insurance that you all set aside?" And so that term escrow is not understood, especially if you're dealing with a new realtor, and they've only heard a lender mention escrow in terms of your monthly savings, if you will, going towards future taxes and insurance. So it's been interesting to have to try to explain some of that. But Kelly, you've helped clear up some things.
Let me flip this. Yeah. There's something else that we get a lot of questions about. Funds having to be wired.
Yes.
And I'm sure you guys do too. So Kelly, why do funds have to be wired?
Fraud. Bottom line.
Elaborate.
Checks. Well, number one, personal checks. We do take them, every title company in the state of Indiana, up to $500. Anything between $500 and $9,999 can be in the form of cashier check. Cashier check essentially is considered good funds. Anything over $10,000, well, at banks, anything over $10,000, that's a flag. They account that has to, and that's what's called guaranteed funds. So a wire transfer is instantaneous. When it hits, it's instantaneous of funds that we can then distribute.
I know a couple years ago, I'd been on the local board of realtors for about 12 years, but there was, we knew a lot of the clients, a lot of the realtors didn't like it. And so, and we do have a powerful lobby. We were going to get changed back, and we had the votes in the House and Senate in Indiana. And the title companies, we were told the title companies, are just begging us not to do it. It's because they'll cause them so many problems. And the realtors backed off then.
Interesting.
It does. Well, it's just the cash flow too.
Well, Indiana, anything greater than $10,000 has to be wired in to the title and closing company. I've got loans on both sides of the river in the state of Kentucky. If you've got $80,000, you can bring a cashier's check for $80,000 in Kentucky.
Yeah.
So
unless they're doing business with an Indiana title company.
Oh, interesting. That's funny.
Then they have to wire it. Yeah.
So
before the wiring thing, I was not there. I've heard this story from a couple people who were in the room. A large developer here, and he walks in, and Kelly, it's someone you and I both know who's no longer in the business, so you'll figure this one out real quick. He said, I forgot to go. He said, I've been busy. I didn't get a chance to go to the bank. But he tells the closer, and the owner of the company, who we know wasn't in the room at the time, and he says, I'll just write a personal check. Of course, she freaked out. And she said, go tell, and use his name. And he said, how much? He says, $1.1 million. He thought he's good for that. It's no big deal to him. And he wrote a personal check for $1.1 million.
Wow.
And it was good. I mean,
it was good.
Yeah. Okay, so of course Kelly's with Bosse Title. I told Jeff yesterday. I said, Jeff, we want you Kelly or Norm, one of the two.
Norm's napping.
Norm couldn't stay awake long enough.
No. And you don't have snacks, so.
Yeah, I know. Kelly and I were at closing once. And Kelly, he was in there, and you were something about. And you were telling him, said, you're not getting my lunch. You're just,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was eating a salad one day, and his head just pops up.
By the way, folks, Norm is a bulldog.
Yeah.
As Norm's head popped up.
Popped up right underneath my desk, yeah.
Yeah. And I know you did. I think since your move to Bosse Title, I think you've really been happy with that, haven't you, Kelly?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a great change. It was a great change for me.
Yeah. And I thought it'd been good. And Jeff Bosse is a great guy. I mean, we give him
fantastic to work for. Yeah.
We give him a hard time, but and he deserves it usually. But
he does. But he can take it too.
Yes. He is a good guy. But so anything you want to add? Oh, well, give us Bosse's number in case somebody has a question.
812-421-4000. Or, you can always go to bossetitle.com as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, Jordan, is that about it? Okay. So, Dave, I think we're out of time here.
Oh, folks, thanks for tuning in today.
Okay, for David Crow, Kelly Norton, this is Charlie Butler. Have a great Sunday.
You've got real estate questions but don't know where to get the answers? Tune in here every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. as Charlie Butler, Evansville's own real estate expert, shares the latest news, info, and insider tips to help you make smart real estate decisions. Find him online at charliebutlerteam.com. This program has been paid for by the Charlie Butler team.
WGBF.